So friends, as the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell debacle continues to take up all the oxygen, do you realize that Donald Trump and his third-rate DOJ lawyers just got their asses kicked in federal court 3 times over the past 24 hours? Points of light, friends. Points of light. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. You know, friends, as a former career federal prosecutor, I can tell you, DOJ typically wins more cases than it loses. That's especially true in the criminal law arena. You know, prosecutors at the Department of Justice are forever boasting about their extraordinarily high conviction rate, 96, 97, 98%. I happen to believe, and this was my lived experience as a prosecutor inside the Department of Justice for decades, that is because the feds typically only choose to indict cases they believe are damn near a sure thing. If a case is weaker than they would like, they can kick it to the states, let the state court prosecutors handle it. They can wrap it up in what we call a pre-indictment guilty plea with some very generous charges to entice defendants to plead guilty, or they can just opt not to indict the case at all, not to bring the prosecution. But the reality is DOJ's conviction rate in criminal cases is extraordinarily high, too high in my opinion. Also in civil cases, DOJ wins far more cases than it loses. I don't know what the stats or the percentages are, but it's a very high win rate for DOJ. However, in the Trump administration, they can't seem to litigate their way out of a paper bag. They are losing day after day in court after court from coast to coast. They are losing in cases that are being presided over by judges who were appointed by presidents who were Democrats, by judges who were appointed by presidents who were Republicans, by judges who were appointed by Donald Trump himself. They are losing day after day in case after case. Now, that is primarily because Donald Trump, when he's not out on the golf course, is sitting in the Oval Office signing unlawful executive order, unconstitutional executive order, one after another, and then Pam Bondi is sending into court the relatively few DOJ lawyers who apparently don't really care about their license to practice law, because these are people who are willing to go into court and argue that Donald Trump's unlawful conduct is lawful, that Donald Trump's unconstitutional executive orders are constitutional, and they're getting their asses handed to them in court day after day, in case after case. And while corporate media, legacy media, what we used to call mainstream media, although frankly, I think independent journalism, independent reporting, independent analysis, legal analysis, and otherwise is now mainstream. You know, I'm over on Substack every day, 100% independent, right? No corporate money, no editorial interference telling people what stories to cover, what stories not to cover. If you want to come on over to Substack and follow me, you can subscribe for free. I put nothing behind a paywall. Come on over. But corporate media and legacy media are chasing the Epstein-Maxwell story all day, every day. And believe me, it's a worthy story. I've done a number of videos highlighting just how depraved it is what Trump and Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche are doing in their determination to keep Ghislaine Maxwell from incriminating Donald Trump and fooling the American people into believing Donald Trump did nothing wrong. I don't know how stupid and gullible they believe we are, but we're not falling for it. But while they're chasing that all day, every day, do you realize, friends, over the past 24 hours, Trump and his DOJ lawyers have had their asses handed to them in court in 3 separate cases, which are sort of flying under the radar a bit, at least, on corporate and legacy media. So let's cover these 3 cases very quickly. This headline from Newsweek: Donald Trump hit by legal roadblock. The Trump administration suffered a legal blow on Friday when a New York District Court judge issued a preliminary injunction blocking its move to cut National Endowment for the Humanities grants from Authors Guild members on First Amendment grounds. This from NBC News. Federal judge dismisses Trump administration's lawsuit against Chicago over its sanctuary city policies. The judge determined the state's policies are protected by the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, a blow to Trump's efforts to crack down on sanctuary jurisdictions. This from PBS. Judge blocks Trump's birthright citizenship order in 3rd ruling since Supreme Court decision. A federal judge on Friday blocked the Trump administration from ending birthright citizenship for the children of parents who are in the U.S. illegally, issuing the 3rd court ruling blocking the birthright order nationwide since a key Supreme Court decision in June. U.S. District Judge Leo Sorokin, joining another district court judge, as well as an appellate panel of judges, found that a nationwide injunction granted to more than a dozen states remains in force under an exception to the Supreme Court ruling. That decision, of course, restricted the power of lower court judges to issue nationwide injunctions. So, friends, this may sound stranger than fiction. It may sound like a bad Hollywood script, but federal court judges nationwide and federal appeals court judges, in a very real and direct sense, are protecting the American people, are protecting undocumented immigrants, are protecting the children of undocumented immigrants who are born on U.S. soil, protecting us all against an abusive president, a lawless president, a president who spends his days in the Oval Office when he's not on the golf course, signing unconstitutional executive orders, one after another, after another. The federal court judges are all in, fighting the fight for the rule of law, for the Constitution, and for the rights of all people. Because justice matters. Points of light, friends, points of light. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.